Greetings all. Today we'll be talking about the differences between a content management system versus web frameworks. I hope to help educate both the programmer who's thinking about getting into some of these technologies and also the consumer, the person who will own the web application. We will even get into some technology known as headless content management systems, which is another variety. Maybe that will help inform your decision. Let's jump in. There are three objectives to this training. The first is to help both the web professional and the web consumer, owner, manager to decide what the best option is for their particular application or needs. The second is to make clear the difference between the two types of tools. And the third is to help make clear the benefits and risks of each option. Now for the user, for the consumer, or the person who will be managing this web application or this website, there are many choices out there for you to choose from. How are you to know what to choose and where to place your time and energy to begin with? These are decisions that have lasting effects. Sometimes it's not so easy to change course. So maybe this training can help you make that decision. The best advice I can give you is to get your requirements written down. What are the important things for you in terms of your web presence? Everything from functionality to look and feel. Put it on paper. Even capture things like how much time you wish to spend on maintenance or the upkeep of your application. Do you even have a desire to maintain your website? Do you have the time? Or is this something you want to farm out to someone else to handle? What type of data will you be storing on your site? How important is data security to you and your business and your reputation? And I dare say that it should be extremely important to all of us in 2019. What is this term web professional? What do I mean by this? This would be the person that may have responsibility to design, build, maintain a website or application for a client, or any subtask thereof. Maybe you're not doing the whole thing, but you're assisting the client to get their application, to get their website up and functioning. This may also include consultant activities. You will help guide your client on which avenue to walk down, which road to take when establishing a web presence and building and maintaining their technology, their web technology. Your time is precious. Perhaps you're taking this class to make a choice on where to focus your efforts. What technology should you focus on to start a new career or to further your existing one? You don't want to get halfway down the road and then realize, wow, there was a better option for my personal circumstances, my personal needs and career aspirations. What is a content management system? A CMS makes it easy for any user to stand up or publish and manage a website with little to no computer programming skills. Through a series of available plugins, the website owner has the ability to make use of things like calendars, forms, displaying products, including or embedding video and audio, distributing newsletters, collecting donations, booking appointments, displaying tables and charts, using a shopping cart, accepting reservations, making use of analytics and reporting, building pop quizzes, accepting payment, enabling user registration, managing permissions, generating invoices, setting up a polling system, house and manage a blog, make available PDF files, and so much more. CMS also allows the user to choose from various themes that are incredibly sharp and professional looking, generally speaking, but are that they're more than just the visual presentation you see as you view the website. They also tie into, in many cases, site behavior and interaction with users. So there's a lot there. There's a rich tool set when using CMS. So what are the choices when it comes to choosing a CMS system? So I'd like to introduce you to a tool called Wapalyzer, and I give you the URL right here. This website employs fingerprinting methods to identify web technologies that are in use. So if you go to that website today, as I have in the screen capture, as of May 2019, you're going to see that Wapalyzer has recognized 208 distinct CMS technologies. You see from this pie chart that WordPress, that was released in 2003, is by far the biggest player in the CMS market. They hold nearly 80% of the market share across the CMS footprint that WebFrameworks can detect. So we just saw on the pie chart that the three biggest players in 2019 in terms of CMS technologies are WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. So I have them here, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but you get to see, if you're curious, some of the well-known organizations that are using these CMS systems. Some pretty heavy hitters from Sony to Notre Dame, Harvard, the NCAA, Entertainment Weekly, Verizon, Tesla, Facebook, Bloomberg. Now, they may not be using them exclusively. In other words, there might be other technology, and it's almost certain for many of these that they're using other technology along with their CMS system, but they are making use of these content management systems. It's an important fact to note. Now, this one is for the web professional mostly. Are there actual jobs out there that you can get? If you learn this technology, is it just going to be a hobby, or can you actually make this into a vocation? Well, I searched 3 different sites. Virtual Vocations, because they are the biggest player, at least that I'm aware of. They're the biggest player in terms of working virtually or telecommute, working environment. Then Indeed, one of the biggest job market sites, and then Upwork for freelancers. And when I looked into the search for CMS systems and WordPress and Joomla and Drupal, I found that there are really multiple jobs out there. And what I found with Virtual Vocations, it was very interesting that many of the CMS system jobs were coupled with traditional web programming skills. So they wanted a lot. So not just CMS, but they were looking for back-end skills. They were looking for front-end skills, that type of thing. On Indeed, I found WordPress had nearly 7,000 postings, Joomla 341, and Drupal had 2,300. Some of these were standalone just for those technologies, and others wanted web technologies as well. The freelance gigs on Upwork were to the tune of 2,200, with the vast majority, well over 2,000, were focused exclusively on WordPress. So it would seem like most of the jobs today, doesn't mean it stays that way, were focused at WordPress technologies. How long does it take to stand up a CMS site using its core functionality? This will always depend on size, scope, complexity of your website, the size of the business. The core steps would still include things like plan the project out, find appropriate web hosting, configure your CMS, create the pages and identify the plugins you'll need, obtain the content, images, text, multimedia files, forms, whatever, test the website. Then we must consider, are we building it for our own use, or will we be working with clients? If for clients, how engaged and responsive are these clients? This could take hours for a very simple site, or weeks or months, depending upon all these factors we've listed here. Then you could, of course, consider customization. So let's talk about customization. How flexible and extensible are CMS applications? Some folks think that they're not very much at all, but if you do the research and if you've used any of them, each of these frameworks has methods to extend the core functionality, provided you have the skill in the programming language the CMS you choose is written in. Each of the big 3 CMS systems appear to be created using a PHP base. PHP is a programming language. So you would need to become proficient at both the CMS itself and, in this case, in the case of the big 3, PHP as well as the core languages of the web, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You couldn't get away without learning a bit about those. So what about data security exposures and CMS systems? Well, this is a very large and important topic to cover comprehensively. So I'm going to focus here on the biggest player as of the time of the creation of this course, and that's WordPress. Data security is critical to the success of your and your clients' businesses. It's an incredibly important topic regardless of the business you're in. All customers have the expectation that web application owners are doing everything they can to protect their data privacy. WordPress had its share of security concerns. According to a report from Securi, Website Hacking Trend report of 2018, so it's current, 90% of compromised websites in 2018 were powered by WordPress. That's staggering. The report cites that many vulnerabilities were introduced through their add-ons, such as themes and plugins. The lack of up-to-date technology patches were also a contributing factor. However, WordPress has now an auto-update feature that is helping in terms of these update exposures. The best defense continues to be a defense in-depth security posture, thereby layering security controls and user education around things like password usage and the like. Now, what I'm showing you here for the big three, WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal, I'm showing you pointers to their security documentation. This is where they talk about security controls for their specific CMS systems. So for WordPress, some of the key features this article states that WordPress offers are things like automated security updates. We mentioned that. They make available code to assist developers in managing things like injection, SQL injection attacks. That has to be configured. There are certain logical access controls that have been put in place that help, they claim, to mitigate cross-site scripting, security misconfigurations. I didn't get a feel for how well, though. And to me, that appears to be a stretch. I'm not sure. You'd need to do more research. Their user account passwords are salted and hashed. Optional configuration settings for using HTTPS as a requirement, so the secure version of HTTP, that also must be configured. And cross-site request forgery protections also is available, and it must be configured. Then for Joomla, some of the key security features this article states Joomla offers. Here's a quote from their website. Security issues can't be resolved with simple one-size-fits-all solutions. True. You or someone you trust must learn enough about your web server infrastructure to make a valid security decision. So they're saying, hey, it's your issue. You need to be concerned with this. Hire the right professionals if you don't have the skills. Here is a website to securing Joomla extensions as well for the site administrator to secure components and modules and plugins. The guide walks the administrator through configurations that will address things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, file permission best practices, and things like that. And then finally for Drupal, the quote from their website is securing a Drupal 7 site starts with understanding what it is you need to protect and identifying possible risks. They're advising us to take a risk assessment approach and conduct a risk assessment to make sure you're clear on what your data is, where it lives, how you have to protect it, that type of thing. After you understand what you're protecting, you will need to dive into learning about the best practices and workflows that assist you in your goal of securing a website. They take the same type of approach as Joomla. The link above focuses on exposing the site administrator to best practices to secure their website data and assets. So WordPress kind of sings a little differently. They talk about what security practices and tools they have at your disposal. The other two are saying, okay, you must configure it in this way to be as secure as you need to be. And by the way, the onus is on you. Get educated, that type of thing. Okay, here we're going to switch our focus into web frameworks. What are they? When we say web frameworks, we're speaking about a computer development platform that consists of tools, libraries, and external packages to build applications and websites from scratch that is based on a core programming language. Frameworks usually provide some form of a database connection or interaction, authentication, URL routing, templating, presenting data to the end user. To make use of this technology, you must have coding skills and abilities, and at a minimum, be versed in the HTTP protocol, the core language the framework is built upon, whether that's Python, PHP, JavaScript, Java, and a good grasp of database technologies and methodologies, as well as HTML, CSS, and of course JavaScript if you're not using a backend that has JavaScript, for all your front-end chores. Generally, you would have more freedom using a web framework to create and build, but there is generally much more to know when dealing with the web framework, namely those things that I just laid out. And then, of course, if there are any other packages that you're going to install, you'll have to know them sufficiently well enough. So there is a lot to learn. Well, we looked at the big players for CMS. Now we're looking at the big players as of May 2019 for web frameworks. And my background is Python and Django. It didn't even make the top 10. So the top 5 are ASP.NET, Ruby on Rails, Laravel, PHP Laravel, Express on Node.js, and CodeIgniter, also on PHP. Interesting, Wappleizer recognizes 82 distinct technologies in this category, as opposed to the over 200, I believe it was 208, for the CMS technologies. So they're more than double over there on that side of the fence. I thought that was an interesting stat. So we looked at who uses, what big notable companies use the big three CMS platforms. Here, I won't read all these, but you'll get to see what big players or what notable players. You may know some of these and not all, but at least you'll get an idea for who is using CodeIgniter, who's using ASP.NET, Laravel, Express, Rails, etc. And again, they might not be using this technology for their whole deployment of their web application, but at least they're using it in part. How big, how small, I don't know, but at least wanted to expose you to give a good comparison to who is using what. And I did similar research here in terms of what security exposures or concerns some of these have. And as of May 2019, you see what they are. It's almost as if it makes no difference. Some of these attacks are the same. Many are exposed to cross-site scripting, CSRF, denial of service was a big one, directory traversal, exposure of their data, that type of thing. So it really doesn't matter. It really is more about a defensive posture to make sure whatever you embark upon, security is your primary concern. You have to make sure that your data is safe to protect your customers and to protect your brand and your business. And here I did some research on these guys in terms of what security controls they say they have or how they direct and guide the user community to secure their deployments. It seems like CodeIgniter talked about some of the features that they have. The other three that I show you on this page all had designated security overviews and position papers and best practices, that type of thing. So you see on ASP.NET, they provide a security tutorial, best practice. For Rails, the manual describes common security problems in web applications and how to avoid them. And then for Node, this guide gives an overview of security best practices, and it lays out really do's and don'ts around security practices. So they all kind of have a different way at arriving at the same thing. Some are more mature, some are more detailed, and some are more involved than the others. Here I'm just presenting you with some generalized comparisons, just a summary of what I have found through this research. So the typical content management systems on the left and the typical web framework deployments on the right. So the first point, to have an up and running website is relatively quick, right? You can do it quicker on the CMS side. And again, it all depends on what you're trying to stand up. It could take months, as we said. To get up and running, depending upon design, could take longer on the web framework side, right? Because we're building from scratch. So typically that would take longer. Again, it depends on what your business requirements are. On the CMS side, there is minimal to no coding background needed. On the web framework side, extensive coding skills are needed across several programming languages, packages, and database. There is a lot to know, especially to be proficient. On the CMS side, you may be able to extend and customize with hired programmers performing that work, but certainly you can extend all this stuff. On the web framework side, it's highly customizable. Options are available through platform packages and through core coding skills. On the CMS side, building a website based on available widgets and platforms and out-of-the-box functionality is generally how that works. Again, it can be extended, but for those more straightforward requirements, you can do it right out of the box. On the web framework side, you have to build a site from scratch. I say that the CMS side is most SEO ready to get you recognized out there in cyberspace in terms of getting, your application noted on different browsers like Google and the like. SEO would need to be treated as an outside task to the core framework functionality, generally speaking, for web frameworks. The CMS enables owners and administrators to spend less time on technology and maintenance. And on the typical web framework side, time spent on building the web application will be considerable across many technology disciplines, both front end, back end, and external packages. And finally, I just wanted to expose you to something that I found was really cool when I was doing the research for this. I had no idea that there was something known as Headless CMS. So what is Headless CMS? Headless CMS is a back-end only content management system. This allows for what is now becoming known as Content as a Service, CaaS. We've heard of SaaS and PaaS and IaaS with cloud deployments. Now we have Content as a Service, which simply means that content storage and delivery are handled by separate software. They're not included. So the templating engine is not in place. In headless technologies, you bring the front-end knowledge and technology of your choice to a headless CMS. This is referenced by a site named storyblock.com. I encourage you to check them out. They had a lot of good information. So this is regular CMS. You see you have your admin interface, you have database with integration, and then you have your view layer. So this over here is the view templating component. This is the thing you won't have with headless. And this is a depiction of the headless CMS type. Notice there is no view templating component. It's off to the right. It doesn't connect. It's what you bring to this CMS. So when might I choose to use a headless CMS deployment? It's when you want to build a website with your own front-end technology, those things that you're familiar with, maybe some of the JavaScript front-end frameworks like Vue.js, Angular, React, websites created with static site generators like Jekyll or Middleman, and also if you want to use native mobile apps like iOS or Android. Because of the headless approach, the content can be used on iOS, Android. So there are a few interesting claims about the benefits of headless CMS architecture, and this is from keycdn.com. First is the flexibility. It gives you the freedom to build obviously your front-end framework, the one that you are most comfortable with. So if you already know that, you can translate that knowledge into using a CMS. Faster time to market, extra security. This was an interesting point for an IT risk person like me. Since the content publishing platform isn't accessible from the CMS database, using a headless CMS lowers your risk of DDoS attacks. That's interesting. That's something to look into, and a reason why I would want to gravitate towards these myself. Scalability. Keeping the back end and front end separated usually means no downtime is needed for maintenance, so you can upgrade and customize your website without compromising performance. It's another good point that they make here. Okay, folks, thanks for watching till the end. If this class has helped you, consider helping me to continue to bring these classes to you and others. Helping is easy. Just do the following. First, subscribe to the Yogi Coder YouTube channel. Next, like this video and leave whatever comments and or questions you'd like. Finally, share this video on any and all social media channels with your friends and colleagues. Okay, guys, that's it. See you next time.